The following case takes place in the In This League courtroom. ITL versus Paul Goldschmidt. Key witness from the prosecution, RotoWire's Derek Van Riper. And the defense welcomes Sleeper and the Bus, Paul Sporer. Your In This League litigation from Chris Welsh and Scott Bogman. We take you to the court now.
Hear ye, hear ye. The ITL court is now in session. The prosecution calls to the stand one Derek Van Riper. Mr. Van Riper, is that your real name?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much for joining us in the court of ITL. I'm going to give it to our prosecutor in hand here, Mr. Scott Bogman.
Mr. Van Riper, on the day of the Paul Goldschmidt trade, where were you?
I was at my desk, and I was as sad and disappointed as everybody else in Arizona that day.
Now, you say that you thought that our show was good enough to win an award. Do you really believe that?
I can't say that under oath.
Mr. Van Riper, which member of In This League is your favorite? And I will remind you, you are under oath.
Oh, this is brutal. I gotta go with the Bogman on this one.
I object.
You guys...
Objection. That is hearsay. That is hearsay in the ITL court. I would like that to be stricken.
Leading the witness.
He is leading the witness, ladies and gentlemen. That's very disappointing. All right, go on, DVR. You made your bed.
It's a moving scale, and the reason why Bogman's
like
currently in
scale
front
at home is moving upwards constantly.
It is a moving scale. It's because last time I listened to your podcast, you literally ordered food at Carl's Jr. during the podcast. that put you in front. I love both of you guys, but it's a constant battle for who's actually my favorite.
What if I told you that was the Welsh's idea because I didn't want to do it on the episode?
That is true.
Well, then the Welsh moves back into the lead.
Damn it.
We will put that in. Please, county typer person, please put that in the records there to be known. So the biggest important thing here in the court of ITL on the ITL versus Paul Goldschmidt case here, Mr. DVR, is we've got to get to the bottom of the justification that ITL has in their anger because the internet is split and analysts are split. You happen to come to the defense of ITL as our leading witness here. And you slid into the DMs. I'd like the court to recognize that as a legal term, slid into the DMs. And you let us know that not only were we funny, hilarious, handsome, and smart, but you also said that the Paul Goldschmidt trade was absolutely ridiculous and you were upset. So could you please, in the court's words, or could you please, for the court, in your own words, talk to us about your feelings on Paul Goldschmidt to the St. Louis Cardinals?
I hate it. I don't hate it as much as Bogman did the day it happened because no one could hate anything as much as Bogman hated it that particular day. But look, I'm a fan of a different team in the NL Central. I root as hard against the Cardinals as I root for the Brewers. And I think the thing that bothers me the most about this trade is that the Cardinals did not need any of the things they gave up to get one of the best players in the league. Even if the return ends up being fair over time, it doesn't look fair right now because it looks like the trade that we see in our keeper and dynasty leagues where some crap team has one good player and they decide to trade that one good player for a garbage return of pieces that the contending team that acquires them doesn't even need. And then you, as the other team contending, are furious that someone else that you're contending with got a great piece for a bunch of spare parts. That's what it feels like because Carson Kelly was irrelevant to the Cardinals with Yadier Molina there. Luke Weaver was like the 8th or 9th starting pitcher on the depth chart potentially. And Andy Young is the type of 3D printer infielder that the Cardinals have been crapping out for the last 10 years. Who else is drafting players from Indiana State other than the Cardinals right now? So all this is just it's like spare change in the couch. Yeah, Uber driver Andy Young. I have to recognize him by the court's legal name. Uber driver Andy Young.
The Court of ITL would also request that you please put that in the upcoming RotoWire magazine. Please put Uber driver Andy Young. That is an official request. But let's get something straight for the Court of ITL in the ITL versus Paul Goldschmidt here. Was the hate for this trade of a selfish nature? Was this a premeditated selfish nature, Mr. DVR, because you're a Brewers fan?
Yeah, somehow I feel justified and insulted at the same time.
Or do you dislike this because the trade was not a fair trade? The Diamondbacks settled for what looks like a very poorish offer for what they should have got. So was this from a selfish perspective, or that this trade really was garbage?
I think it really was garbage. Like, how did they not get Harrison Bader back as part of the return? Like, the Cardinals have a million outfielders, and the Diamondbacks need a center fielder. They're letting A.J. Pollock walk. Bader seems like the perfect guy to get back in this trade. How do you not get a better pitcher than Weaver back? Whether that's Alex Reyes, or if you like one of the younger prospects instead, maybe you could go down that path. I think more likely you should have got one of Nolan Gorman back or Malcolm Nunez. Like, you should have been able to get a higher ceiling, potentially elite player back. And no matter how good Andy Young and Carson Kelly and Luke Weaver are, it's almost certain to me that none of them will be elite players. Like, you're looking at maybe regulars for each of them. Maybe. But I don't think there's another level there with any of those three players. And that's the most disappointing thing about the return. Again, when you're giving up a superstar, like, I realize that power hitting first basemen are devalued, like, more than they have been at any point in the game's history. But Goldschmidt's a lot more than that.
Yeah, how about Gold Glovers? How about the face of the franchise? How about the best player since Randy Johnson on this team? I'm 100% with you. That's a franchise-level player, and I would have been much happier if they had gotten a one-for-one deal, even if it was just Gorman. Like, Gorman has superstar potential.
Or Reyes,
I'm
like
with
we
you.
talked about.
Yeah, Reyes would have been perfect. So I would like replacing a franchise player with someone else who could potentially be a face of the franchise is something that I would have preferred. And I think it would have looked better to the people because, like, as just regular baseball people, the Welsh and I can understand this deal. But we also know that you're not going to get a lot of support from the regulars that just go to games, and you just traded their favorite guy. That's it.
Yeah, the mushmouths are going to just walk in and be like, oh, Diamondbacks, I don't care who's there. But those guys are waterheads. They're idiots. Who cares about them? The people that care and are going to support the team, they just lost everything. They lost everything.
You goddamn
DVR.
mushmouths.
Yeah, these mushmouth idiots, DVR.
Didn't they get a $2 billion TV deal like 2 years ago? Was I
yeah, but it's for like
that?
95 years or something ridiculous. It was a big deal, but they're also fighting over the county with the stadium stuff. Like, it's just a mess over here right now.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that stadium, it's such an old piece of crap. Oh wait, no, it's not. Like, it's probably not that bad. And the thing I just don't get is the Diamondbacks weren't that far away from being competitive again in 2019 if they kept Goldschmidt around, if they replaced A.J. Pollock in a savvy sort of way. You guys brought this up, I think, when the trade happened. Why do you extend Eduardo Escobar if you're going to start selling pieces off? I mean, you got a Zach Greinke on a huge deal. You owe him $31.5 million this year and $32.5 million the next 2 years. I know he's got limited no trade protection, but you have to get rid of that contract if you're really shedding payroll and trying to just get down to bare bones. It seems like they're kind of one step into the rebuild, and the Goldschmidt was the easiest piece to get rid of.
Like, and they say that they're not rebuilding.
No, it's because of the delusion. No, it's the delusion, and this is the worst place to be in professional sports, where you're in between blowing everything up and trying to compete. And obviously you don't want a league that's half blown up and half competing. That's not good. But there does have to be a rock bottom to start making a move up. And the Diamondbacks, they're trying to hedge their bets at every level. They're saying, well, Goldie, blah, 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 blah. Like you said, easiest trade. But, well, we got Eduardo for 3 years. That's a good contract. We got Lamb here. Zach Greinke's still here. We're not moving him yet. He's our ace. And you're just towing the line. They've even openly said that they don't consider themselves rebuild, which makes them more laughable and makes this trade more laughable, because did they make this trade looking as a team that's not quite out of it, so we want assets that'll help us now? And was that in lieu of getting future good talent? I mean, could they have had the opportunity? That's what's so embarrassing about this. The ITL recognizes prosecutor Scott Bogman for any final questions.
I guess my final question is, where would you put Luke Weaver in this year's rankings? Is he a draftable player in a 12-man league?
In a 12-man where you got like a 7-man bench, like NFBC, like a deep 12-man, I think you can throw one of your last couple picks at him. I mean, there was something there. If this trade went down last winter, I think there'd be a little bit more excitement about the Weaver part of this. It's a former first rounder. Yeah, he's 25 now, but there's something there to build on. The K rate was pretty high in 2017, almost 11 per 9. The walk rate wasn't bad. I think the struggles we saw last year are kind of the extreme downside for him. So probably like a 75 to 90 range pitcher is where I'd have him. I mean, pitching in Arizona with the humidor, it's a better place to pitch now. So I feel a lot better about him now than I would have a few years ago going into Chase Field. So I think he's draftable in a deeper 12-teamer. Not necessarily a must-target breakout type, but pretty clear job security, I think, for him at this point. He needs a third pitch. That's going to be the key for him.
My final question of law firm Bogman, and Welsh is, do you see any type of a swing in Mr. Paul Goldschmidt's value in St. Louis? Take away your Homer Milwaukee hat for a minute and how much you hate seeing it, as much as I do, seeing that disgusting number 46. Do you think, I mean, the Cardinals do ridiculous things with hitters. Do you see this as a plus up on Goldie? Do you think it's maybe an even keel value going away from hitter-friendly Arizona? Or do you think, maybe the Diamondbacks got out while it was good and there's a downturn coming? What do you think about the plaintiff, Paul Goldschmidt?
Well, we did see the K rate jump up early last season. I think after about mid-May, things kind of leveled off and Goldie looked like Goldie again. I don't know if there's much of a value shift with the move to St. Louis. I think the lineup he's going to end up in 2019 is going to be roughly as good as the one he was in the last couple seasons in Arizona. And I think Chase Field with the humidor probably plays a lot like Busch Stadium. So in terms of park factors, there's not a massive swing there. So I think 2018 is probably the new baseline for him for a few reasons. One, the K rate being up, and two, the stolen bases came down again. I don't think St. Louis is going to have to steal a lot of bases to manufacture runs. So maybe there was a chance in Arizona the bags would have come back a little bit. I don't really see that happening in St. Louis, but mostly a neutral move in my eyes as far as Goldie's actual value for the upcoming season.
DVR, we thank you very much. We're looking forward to talking to you more, and it's time to go get on the defendant, Paul Sporer. We now call to the stand Mr. Paul Sporer. Paul Sporer, please raise your right hand. Is it raised? I can't see. This is audio.
It is raised.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you, fantasy god?
I do.
Is your name really Paul Sporer?
It is.
How much lip balm do you own currently?
I have about 7 full tubes. Full to partially used tubes, and then 3 or 4 others that are out that I will use my pinky to scrape some out of because I'm ridiculous.
I'm going to send it. I'm going to send it to the prosecution now because this is clearly a man that would defend Paul Goldschmidt with all that lip balm. Mr. Scott Bogman, cross-examine Mr. Paul Sporer, please.
Mr. Sporer, I have some questions for you here. Why would one use more than one tube of chapstick?
Well, you like to have one at the desk, one at the bed, one in your winter coat pocket, one in the car during the fall. Can't really keep it in the car in the summer in Texas. One where I play PlayStation, one in my backpack. Actually, there's 2 or 3 in my backpack. I'm not going to lie. I think there's even one in the bathroom, and then there's a couple unopened ones just, so we're ready when we run out.
It's like where I stash all my porn.
Exactly.
Case dismissed. Case dismissed. We've heard enough.
No, I do have a question. Why don't you hate good trades?
Yeah, why do you like Goldie so much?
Yeah, why do you hate good trades? Because this one was terrible.
No, I don't hate good trades. That's why I don't hate this one, because it's a pretty good trade. All right, listen.
Break it down.
Listen, losing your best player, your favorite player, is always difficult. I lost Curtis Granderson off the Tigers a year after I named my dog after him.
What did they get back for Curtis Granderson?
It's a different deal, obviously, because Curtis Granderson's better than Paul Goldschmidt in every conceivable way, obviously.
I seriously had a sip of water and I almost spit it out.
Objection.
All we got was Max Scherzer and Austin Jackson. How was I supposed to deal with that?
Where'd they get Max Scherzer from, too, by the way?
Oh, yeah, from the Diamondbacks. Hey, you guys should have held on to him. He ended up being pretty good, by the way. I'm just saying. No, listen, and those aren't the same case. I know that Granderson might have had more years, whatever. Here's the thing you guys have to understand, though. One year, an elite first baseman, even an elite one who's going to be age 31, like, you can only get so much. So to get a guy with a legit number 3 floor with the potential upside for more, a starting catcher who can put together a decade-long career. If his defense gets back to where it was, I was unaware that his defense, I had originally touted it as strong. Apparently, he had fallen back. I heard from some Cardinal folks that he fell back this year, but it's something that I think he can definitely get back, especially with regular reps. And
the court would also like to say that John Murphy has had a elongated career as a catcher. I would just like that to be in the written record as you defend.
Yeah, Mike Zunino has been around forever.
You guys would kill for Mike Zunino.
I would kill for Zunino.
The Diamondbacks are the same team that employed Jeff Mathis and allowed him to play 69 games, which is the only time that 69 has not been nice. So please spare us, spare the state here, the defendants, any sort of care that you guys potentially have for catcher, as if you put any premium on it, as if Carson Kelly doesn't need to just show up at the stadium to be better than somebody.
So why would we want him?
Yeah,
games.
Good defense of why we want this guy.
Because we don't care about catchers.
Exponentially better than Jeff Mathis, and he will improve the ball club.
Well, everybody's better than Jeff Mathis. Jeff Mathis isn't that good. He's a
Tuffy Goldschmidt is better than Jeff Mathis.
Exactly.
I'd rather have Tuffy.
Exactly. You needed to improve that. And then also, honestly, Andy Young's kind of an interesting guy because when he's not driving Uber, he rakes. He really smacks the ball. He's kind of one of those guys. He's a typical Cardinals guy. Doesn't really have a position, but can just hit. His position, his defensive position is hitter. I think that if we rewind this a year and everything else is the same, that we take the stock of Weaver and Kelly and we still make it a 31-year-old last year Goldschmidt, but we do it a year ago, you don't get all of that because Weaver's stock would have been much higher. I think you guys are letting recency bias and favoritism towards your own guy really creep in here because Weaver wasn't very good this past year, but he's 24 years old. We already know, particularly with pitchers, but the prospects at large, their growth isn't linear. They go up and down before they stabilize. I just don't see it being that bad.
Could they have done better is my question.
This is something that I want to push back for everyone because this happens a lot during trades. I don't envision any universe where GMs don't go out and pound the pavement and look for the best deal way more often than not. There may be scenarios where they could have gotten something better, and we might hear down the line that a GM would have said, if I had a better relationship with so-and-so, they might have given this. It is very rare, though. They are turning over every stone. They're trying to figure out what they can
But, I
get.
mean, I don't think any GM in a right mindset would say, yeah, we could have done way better.
Well,
that's the way
No,
you
the GM won't, but the other GM might say, we'd have given X, Y, and
Let me
Z,
throw this in. Let me throw this into the court as evidence here. This came from part of the prosecution in the front, or the state versus with Derek Van Riper. Is how about this though? To your point, you are right about that. We always go back and we look at trades and we say, well, they could have done better. They should have done this. Can do this. But if you think of the mindset of the team and look at the Arizona Diamondbacks, a team that currently right now is openly walking around saying they don't consider themselves really in a crazy rebuild. They haven't gotten rid of Greinke. They signed Eduardo Escobar to a contract. They're making moves as if it was a team that was just consolidating. So by that front, it would be in that state of mind for the team to not go in and try to get a piece that's 3 or 4 years away. One major project.
Yeah.
They want to take a couple pieces that fill in roster spots for the next couple years. So they weren't in the mindset of pressing for the best single prospect, more or less just depth.
Yeah, and I don't think that the compensation pick they would have gotten would have been better than this. Again, you're talking about a major league starter here. Luke Weaver looks like he's going to be a solid, obviously if health permits, he's going to be a solid guy who's going to give you 150 to 180 innings for 3-4 years. And then, like
Godley?
I said, Carson Kelly. I mean, look what Godley spiked to. Again, roll the clock back a year ago to what we were thinking about Zach Godley,
Sure.
right? Pitchers bounce up and down. I thought Luke Weaver's price was insane in fantasy last year, and now it's something where I'm actually open to buying because he's a complete afterthought now.
So what about this fact? And, we can all, like, the Welsh and I were clearly mad about trading
Sure.
Goldie. We wanted to get a superstar back, all that stuff. But I think at the end of the day, we can put the fandom down and say, all right, like, I don't know if they could do much better than this. I think they probably could have done better. I don't know if the return would have got much
we
better.
We can also say that, like,
I think a single player. I think one single player could have been a bigger name.
Yes.
But then it's all eggs in one basket. And what if that guy flops? Whereas you do have 3 different avenues and a compensation pick, right? We talk mostly about like top 10 picks because that's usually who most people are likely to know, especially in baseball specifically, unless you listen to Prospect One, which you should.
Hey.
But for the most part, people don't know all those guys. But you can't tell me that a 65 pick or whatever it's going to be
Goldschmidt was a 10th round
pick,
8th round,
yeah,
8th or 10th round.
So that could end up being the gem of it. And we say, remember when they got Johnny 2 Cents over here? He was that compensation pick for Goldie. So they even have a lottery ticket yet to be scratched.
Well, and we understand.
I can't wait till we get Johnny 2 Cents.
Yeah, that would be great. What I was going to say also is to say that we have the foresight to realize that, like, also you can't actually judge this trade until probably 3 years down the line when all those guys are gone. Just like the Diamondbacks said, you can't really judge this trade of Dansby Swanson and Ender Inciarte and Blair for nobody until, you really are mad about it or you're less mad about it. That's what they want you to do.
Well, here's the thing. Trades get 2 grades. I think they should. They get trade at the time. They get a grade at the time. You see, okay, this is what it looks like with the stock of the return versus the guy going out, and then you let it play out and kind of reassess it there. I do think there should be 2 different grades because to say you can't just ever grade it till it's completely done, I think that's a little foolhardy too. I think you have to have the double grade. At the time, we thought it was a B-, and then it turned into a D or it turned into an A+, right? Obviously, trades take different paths.
We all understand that. But for the franchise, the Arizona Diamondbacks franchise, which is a young franchise that won early, but since 2001 has really had a history of losing. So what most people see, ticket holders and the like, they say they just traded the best player in franchise history for 3 guys. We have no idea who they are.
One's an Uber driver.
Probably not going to be. One of them has 5 stars, but we don't know how good he is on the baseball field. So we don't know what we're getting here. This team is still trying to trade Greinke, and they're probably not going to be very good this year, especially competing with Colorado and LA and San Francisco. San Francisco's always in there, even when they're not. Yep. So to the basic fan, this looks terrible. Wouldn't it be, as a young franchise, wouldn't it be better for the franchise to say, we're going to stick with Goldie. We're going to try to sign him. If he leaves, at least we can say to our fan base, we did everything we possibly could to get this franchise guy, everyone's favorite player, to stay, and he left. I understand, the Welsh understands, you understand, that they are just trying to get some return on their investment here since they're probably not going to be able to sign him. But the basic rubes and boobs just see this as the team that's fighting with the county for money and doesn't have,
we're not to move stadiums and stuff.
We're not steeped in tradition here yet.
Understood. I get
so
that.
Trading the best player in franchise.
I mean, it's just very Diamondback centric
like
what you're talking about, though.
I understand.
I just don't think you can.
You got to take that into account with the overall trade.
I just don't think you can run an organization based on what the generic, call-in radio show guy is going to think about it, right? Because they don't know who these players are or what kind of stock Weaver, Kelly, and Young have. If you run your team like that, you're going to run it into the ground. It's going to be a problematic team because then when they just let him go, like they know better than anybody else the likelihood of being able to re-sign him. And with that Greinke contract, of course, that puts him over barrel. Here's the one thing, too, by the way, just kind of a general thing. I call total BS on any team that cries poor, but they do put they put these artificial restrictions on. I mean, you bought a major league team. You're not poor. Yeah. You're cutting into profits, perhaps, and you don't want to do that. But spare me that you can't afford whatever because you absolutely can.
Easy to afford more when you have Andy Young and Carson Kelly on your roster, too.
And so, but that's neither here nor there. Teams are still going to always do that because they want to keep their profits because of money-grubbing owners. Okay.
Yeah.
But you have to let your front office run the team the way they see fit if you're going to entrust them to do that. And they thought getting 4 assets with some potential for the top 2 and then a couple lottery tickets with Young and the pick for Goldie instead of just letting him walk and taking a pick or taking your shot this year. I guess I'm really confused that they were even looking to deal him just because they seemed like a team that was still pretty good, but that's the assessment that they've made, that they suck.
Well,
so
they do suck. They do suck. Mr. Paul Sporer, you may stand up and leave the stand. We appreciate your testimony in the case of ITL versus Paul Goldschmidt.
Before you leave, do you like Steve Bogman or Chuck Welsh? Who is your favorite?
Steve's a really good guy, man. I got to know him. I did a draft with Steve, and so I want to get to know Chuck a little bit better. But I did a draft with Steve. He made some really good picks, so I think I like him a little bit more.
I would count it to say that did you not spend a wonderful dinner with Mr. Chuck Welsh when you were out at first pitch? I do recall a nice 45-minute drive together and a dinner from Mr.
That's
Chuck.
True. Chuck's a great guy. Don't get me wrong. This is not a negative thing on Chuck. It's just a little bit more positive on Steve.
The Lip Bomb, you may leave the stand. Thank you very much for your testimony. We will invite you back very soon.